Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, how are you? Okay, fine. Okay, we will start the second session for the second ICONELT um, 2019. And this second session will be two speakers who will present their articles. The first one is um, Associate Professor Elke from University of Canberra, Australia, and then I, he served as a program director for MTCHO, Master of Teaching English as Speaker to Other Languages at the University of Canberra, Australia, and she also supervised PhD candidates at that university, focusing on curriculum development and feedback assessment for doctoral educations. And then today, she will be sharing with us her articles entitled Innovation Through Curriculum Development in English Language Teaching and Learning, a playground for research-based curriculum transformations. And then either you pay attention to the presentations, and then I will give the time for 30-minute program for presentations. At the end will be 5 minutes for session to clarify anything that doesn't clear yet, or you can raise your questions. The time is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, good afternoon. Do you feel like this koala? I was very much afraid that that might be the case after a long morning of listening, and now you have more listening to do. And this is working now? Okay. So, where is it not working? I just wait for this, please. Oh, okay. I might actually just... Well, I might just use this because if I'm... No, this is not... Okay, this is not working. Will it work? Thank you. It works? Okay. Okay, let's try again. So, I hope I can get you out of your after-lunch slumber and get you a little bit engaged. So, I would like to talk about curriculum transformation because this is our topic. But before I get started, I would really like to thank the organizers of this conference to have invited me. And you have heard that Fitria, who is not here, was my student when she studied at the University of Canberra, and I'm also really happy to see others who have either studied at UC or who are studying at UC to be here today. It is a privilege to be here, and I hope that this is just the beginning of a stronger relationship. Now, when I was invited to speak here today to this topic, innovation through curriculum development, I actually thought that's a really important theme. It is very, very important. please give me a big wave. Okay. Our time is a little bit shorter this afternoon, so I'll try to speak in less than 30 minutes. Then we do question time, and then my colleague will continue. So it will be short and sharp. Okay. Now, who is responsible for curriculum development? What do you think? The management team? The senior management? Or the junior management? Do we have people from management here? We have a few people from management here. Anyone who is a manager? No? They've all gone? So are they responsible for curriculum development? Or is it maybe the teachers? Do we have teachers here? Yes, we have very many teachers here. What about the students? Are the students responsible for curriculum development? No, yes. Maybe they are not responsible because it's not their job, right? But somehow they are important. If we forget about the students when we develop curriculum, something is wrong, because after all, the curriculum, the education that we have, is for them, not for us. We are their teachers, their educators. So the students must be somehow in the curriculum development process. What about others? There are others. Administrators, or maybe the parents of the students that we teach. What about the broader society? The broader society has an interest that we as teachers do what the society expects us to deliver and produce. Ideally, candidates or graduates that are employable and get employed. So, what about you? Do you think that you are responsible for curriculum development? Or do you think that it is a task that others should be doing? Don't know. What do you think? Do you think you're responsible? Can I just see, maybe, just stretch. Do you think that you're responsible for curriculum development? Yeah, raise your arm. Okay. By the time you leave, no, in 45 minutes, I would like to see all these hands go up. Okay, all these hands go up. Because I think that you are all responsible for curriculum development. It's not the other's job, it is our job. And this is what this paper is about. And as I said before, research and dialogue are important in this context. Okay, I said I would be quick. So, at this. Okay, so at the beginning I talk a little bit about curriculum and what it actually means. To get the definitions right, curriculum and then curriculum development. And then I would like to talk and make a case for the importance of dialogue and research in curriculum development. And then I'd like to share with you 2 curriculum development projects that I was personally involved in as an educator. Now, of course, these are my stories, but I hope you find them inspiring to think about something that you might find inspiring in your context, because if I can do it, you can do it in your context. Whatever you are, whether you are here today as a manager, you junior, senior, as a teacher, and maybe even as a student, and I'll share one story with you. That's the plan, and maybe some conclusions at the end, questions and answers. Okay, now what is curriculum? I'll skip the hyperlinks, you can go into this later if you like. What does dictionaries say? If you go into this link here, you will have a very nice list of all the definitions that, what is a curriculum? It's a course of study, you know, basically. But there's not only one definition of what a curriculum is. There is different opinions of what a curriculum is. There's not just one definition, okay? I think this definition here, it describes the complete course of study, for example, for a degree in English, does the job for us today as a working definition. So it is the complete course and the particular courses or units or subjects in that course and their content. Please note, curriculum is different from syllabus, and it's also different from course or unit or subject, whatever you call that. You want to be aware of that difference. Curriculum is broader, okay? Curriculum describes the complete course, and particular courses. Whereas syllabus, look down here, it's the specification of the content of a course of instruction that of a particular course, and basically decides what will be taught and tested. Often, you're involved down there at the syllabus level, if at all, but often the curriculum development process is not part of what a typical teacher does. So I would like to invite you to think big and also think about curriculum development and not only syllabus. If you look at curriculum development, you can see there are lots of aspects there that need to be considered. The needs of the learners, I put them first. As I said before, we are here to teach at the universities, at the schools, because we want our learners to learn, our students to learn. So the needs of the learners are crucial. If we don't understand their needs, then how do we know what to teach? And also, how do we know how to teach? Because also the expectations of how students wish to be taught need to be considered. There are the aims and objectives of the course, then comes the syllabus, the course or subject structure. The methods, we need to choose the methods. We need to choose the materials. And I'm not only talking about the textbook here. Willie gave a great overview about all the materials that we can use to achieve our goals. So we want to be creative here. And of course, at some stage, we also need to do an evaluation, because otherwise, how do we know that what we do is actually worth our while and that we reach the students and make them help realize their aspirations so that their needs are met. Okay, so here's a long definition by Richards, who is probably one of the best known writers in this part of the world. Note that this definition is from his first edition of the book Curriculum Development. It's because there is no electronic version of this book, so I had to cite from this book. But if you are interested in learning more about curriculum development, please use his 2017 version of curriculum development. It's in the references and you find it there. So look at all this has to be done. You need to focus on what knowledge, skills and values students learn in schools. And you know all this, but do you always think about this when you teach? How it's learned. Also then, of course, how you plan, measure, evaluate. And language curriculum development is part of the broader area of applied linguistics. And of course, we do language curriculum development for all languages that we teach, whether you teach English or another language. So, curriculum development is a big project. It's a huge task, and it's not easy. This is also maybe why sometimes people think, oh, I'll just stay away from it. I just do my teaching. But the teaching is part of curriculum development and implementation, so we need to be aware of that. Okay, so interestingly, syllabus design has existed for longer than curriculum development. So syllabus is when you think of a course, like a course of, say, reading skills, and you think about the content that you teach there and how you test those reading skills or speaking skills, okay? So it's at a much lower level. And syllabus development or design happened already in the early 20th century. And it was roughly around 1950, after the Second World War, that curriculum developments really started becoming important. And the reason for this, as so often, is socio-historical reason. After the Second World War, there was so much interest in developing new methods for people to communicate. You know, there was an emphasis on trying, helping students or people to actually communicate with each other. So we needed new methods away from grammar translation method, and that also triggered an interest in curriculum development. So curriculum development, we've been doing this now for roughly 60 to 70 years. So it's quite an established discipline. We know a lot. The earliest champion of curriculum development is worthwhile knowing. It is Tyler in 1949. So that's a few years after, I don't know, probably hardly anyone was born in 49. But look at his ideas. The ideas are still valid. So the ideas that Tyler raises here, almost exactly actually 70 years ago, I don't know whether it was July though, they are still the same. What purpose do we have in our teaching? And that is a bigger question than just what you do in your class. What are the experience that I would like to provide to my students? The term experience, educational experience, was already there in 1949. It's a big word today. We always talk about the student experience. It's been there for a long time. So what kind of experience do we offer to our students? How can it be organized? How can what we teach be organized? And that is actually the meaning of curriculum, right? It's bringing order to a set of courses. And then how do we know that what we do actually achieves its goal, right? So this is the evaluation. So curriculum, I might just say this quickly, comes from the Latin word currere, which means to run. It's to run, and it means it's a race, a course of a race. And the idea of, you know what a race is? You start somewhere and you finish somewhere else. So this is the idea of the curriculum. You start somewhere with the learner, wherever the learner is, and you want that learner to achieve, after running and racing, a certain goal. Now, how do we get there? How do we get there? And it was only in the 20th century that the idea of curriculum, bringing order to what we teach, really entered the educational scene. Okay? It doesn't mean that things were not taught before and there were disciplines, but this is a 20th century brainchild, if you like. Okay, now I'm going to be quick with this because this is quite theoretical. So 70 years of work in curriculum development. You can imagine a lot of work has been done. And of course, we don't only do curriculum development in English, we do it across all subjects. There are big thinkers here, and for those who are actually interested in thinking about curriculum at a higher level, maybe because you are moving into curriculum, there is so much research out there and so many suggestions what you can do. Note that there is not only one way how we can develop courses of study. There are different ideas. So for example, here, Biggs, a very famous educator, he suggests we have to start thinking about outcomes. I'm not sure how much outcomes-based education is current here, but it's the idea of that you start by looking, what do I want to have at the end of the course and how do I get there? And then you have the idea of constructive alignment between outcomes, assessment, and what you teach. Are you familiar with the idea of alignment, constructive alignment? Some are, okay. This is where it comes from. So this is one way of organizing how you do things in your school, in your department. Biggs, a big name, Biggs, okay? There are others, like Galinda Ackerlind, a colleague from Canberra, thank you, who said, first come the students. She takes a very different approach. She wants the students to be at the center of whatever we do in curriculum development. A bottom-up approach. Ask students what they want and what they need and take it from there. Okay, others look very closely at practices, processes, putting the student into the focus. Key word here would be learner autonomy. And moving on, others focus more on achievement, what has to come out at the end of it. So very different ideas, and there's not one way of doing it right. Okay, so this, for example, would need discussion. If you wanted to kind of develop your curriculum, what kind of approach will you take? This should be a collaborative process. Okay, each of these strategies is useful, okay? Together, of course, they show the complexity. You cannot follow either of these approaches without talking with each other and without doing a systematic inquiry, and that is where the research comes in, okay? Just talking about what you think the students need is not research. This is an exchange of ideas, and it is very important to have that exchange, but it is not research. It is building on what you believe others think or do, okay? Now, time is of the essence. My main point is, if you want to develop curriculum wherever you are, in a school, early childhood, at university, you need to talk. So an early curriculum developer, Appleby, he always said curriculum development is a conversation. And if you remember this, I would be very happy, because you need to talk. You need to talk. The people who we mentioned at the beginning, the management, the teachers, the students, others, they need to talk, because they all have different interests. And if you only follow the interests of one group, you have a problem, because what you develop might actually not be of much interest to the others. So we need conversation of all these people, dialogue. What about research? Just as a reminder, what is research? Research is this, okay? This is our Australian definition, the creation of new knowledge. So when we develop a curriculum, we actually need to create new knowledge. The curriculum that we develop for a school, a program, even a national curriculum, it is something new, because the curriculum from 50 years ago will not work anymore. So curriculum development is creation of something new. And for that, we need a systematic approach. I will skip this here very quickly. So research is a systematic approach. And actually here I chose a couple of quotes from researchers in our field of TESOL, English language teaching and applied linguistics. What is important about research is that it is a systematic inquiry, okay? And very important, you have a question, you collect data, and then you come to your analysis and interpretation, okay? So it's not just a chat, it's not a talk box, as Fitria was saying. It's actually work, it is a systematic investigation. For curriculum development, we have to go a little bit further. We need to also think about it and maybe trial it in the classroom, a pilot if you like, and then see how it works. If it doesn't work, we try again, try something new. Same with curriculum development. It's an ongoing process. So it's very closely related to action research. Who's familiar with action research? Some are nodding. Yes, okay, that's an idea for another workshop then. Let's have a quick look at action research. This is what I'd like to show you. So this is the typical cycle of action research for those who are not familiar with it. You have a problem, okay? And that can be anything. It can be, there was a lady who was saying, oh, you know, what do I do when my students don't talk much with me in my classroom, in my speaking class? Now that is a problem. That is a problem. What do you do if you know that the units that you offer, the subjects that you offer, do not really motivate our students? We know motivation is crucial. So you have a problem. Okay. So you have a problem, you make a plan, as you do. Okay. Then you act to see whether what you think might work, works. That's the action, in the action research cycle. But then you actually observe what you do, and you do this in a systematic, research-based way. You collect and analyze your data, then you reflect and you share, okay? So this is the typical action research cycle when teachers do research in their context. It's very context specific. This cycle is generic, but when you actually do it in your classroom, in your school, it becomes very context specific. Curriculum development, the curriculum development cycle follows this. And you can see here, this is the typical curriculum cycle. You can see again, you have a problem. The problem would be, maybe you have to just think about whether your curriculum is still up to scratch, up to standard, 21st century adequate. Okay, so you plan. You might want to introduce maybe, you know, new subjects, a new methodology. So you plan for that. And here starts the cycle again. You don't only plan, but you actually implement it. You act upon it. Okay? Down there, you implement. And then you watch what you're doing. You monitor. So you observe what you're doing. You evaluate. And then, as teachers, we reflect on what we do. And maybe we have actually realized, yes, there has been some improvement, but I can still do a little bit there. And then the circle starts again with a new problem. And so it goes on. It's ongoing. It's continuous development. Curriculum development, just like teaching development, your development as teachers, it never stops. you're not the teacher today that you will be in 5 years' time. I was certainly not the same teacher 5 or 10 years ago. Okay, so what we need to do if we want to develop curriculum, we need to follow these steps if we want to do it in a professional way. And I invite you to think about this and do this. And you can do it wherever you are, wherever you work. So we need the problem. The problem is always there. Then we need to collect data. That is the importance of research. We need to analyze. Then we need to implement. And maybe then also we want to share what we find through dissemination. Okay, very important also for those academics among you. Now, how many minutes do I have left? 5? 5, okay. Then I shall show you one longer example and one very short one. Now, here's an example of curriculum development that was actually student generated. So this is an invitation for all those students among you who maybe see something in your curriculum at your university that does not really correspond with what you expected. You know, something where you think, I just wish my teacher or the management knew about it. Now, I had a student in my Master of TESOL course at UC. She thought, I'm not quite sure whether everybody is as satisfied with the course as the university wants them to be. And she made this the topic of her master's dissertation. This lady is called Yoko Mori. And she developed a project. I was very happy to be her supervisor. Of course, it was a bit tricky because it had to be very confidential what she did so that the students would actually be frank and honest. And so she did a project on overall student satisfaction in the course because she just wanted to know a little bit more. So she collected data with a survey and interviews, she analyzed, and then she found out that there was a problem, that overall things were good, but students were lacking one crucial thing, and that was another practicum unit. So in our masters we have a practice unit, but students wanted more practice in order to learn how to teach. Okay? Now, she wrote all this down in her dissertation. It was research-based. It was a great job. I could use her data, her study, when we developed our curriculum to actually add another unit to our course. And we now have a second unit. If we had time, we could go into it, which will be offered the first time this year, which is the practice unit. So here's an example how a student, in collaboration with her lecturer, was able to influence curriculum for the better. Because our students are very happy that we now offer another unit that will help them develop their teaching practice. We also disseminate. We went to a conference, and now we have this paper. It's under review in an index journal. It's very important for you. So you can also see how this curriculum development can help people sharpen their research profile. Time is probably almost up, so I just click through this. My second example would have been a very different example, but interesting maybe for those who look at collaboration in the wider context. Here, I was part of a team, and we developed a curriculum in industrial design, product design. This is where you design vacuum cleaners or nice tables. And it was an amazing collaboration with the university in Saudi Arabia. Now, this was great, and we had to talk a lot with each other to understand each other. You can imagine Saudi Arabia and Australia have very different cultural contexts, so a lot of collaboration was needed. But the result is that now at this university in Dammam, they have their first female-only industrial design course. And we are very happy to support, this kind of development in Saudi. Okay, so I have to skip all this. Oh, this was our team up there in Saudi at the time. Okay, so to conclude, I would like to invite you to think about how, through your own work in collaboration probably with others, through a dialogue with all stakeholders and through a systematic approach, which we call research, you can shape practice and curriculum. It is not something that others do. We need to do that. And I understand from my students that the IQF that you have actually allows for quite some autonomy, if you like, especially at university level. You have some space to maneuver and do things. So grab that space and shape things the way you think they should be. Now, we read in the conference program that, you know, curriculum needs to transformation. We need people who do that transformation. Please do not wait for others to do it. Take charge yourself. Don't talk about learner autonomy, think about teacher autonomy and what you can do to make things happen. Hopefully you can see that it is possible just by doing it in a systematic way, taking everybody's opinion into consideration. So, who is responsible? It's our responsibility, okay? It's not just the others. Now, the questions also that this conference raises, all these questions, the bigger purposes of this conference, I don't think that you can resolve any of these problems in isolation. Again, you need to talk, and then you need to act and see whether it works. Otherwise, I'm looking at Fitria as the main organizer of the conference, so that something happens. You said you don't want a talk shop. So if you don't want to talk, then we need to act. And the best thing to act is actually do something together. Because if you try to do this on your own, it's too hard. It's too hard. It's too hard. Okay, so, are you ready? Don't know. I hope so. Okay. Thank you. Danke and terima kasih. Any questions?
Thank you very much for the challenging explanations. Because the time is very limited, probably I will just open one questions. Because we start a little bit later. That one. Okay.
Hi. Okay. My name is Alda. I'm from UIN Sunan Ampel. Yeah, it's very insightful lecture, I think. But I want to share first. Probably it's about the curriculum in Indonesia for school curriculum, because previously you talked about the university curriculum actually, but some of us probably know about school curriculum. And in Indonesia itself, the case is we changed the curriculum so many times. So we have 2013 curriculum, and previously we have 2013, 2006. 1998, and I forgot about that. And it's like it's not easy for the teacher to catch up with the changing. I mean, like, it's not only the teacher but all of us. I mean, like the student and the teacher itself. So what do you think? I mean, when we need to develop the curriculum itself, when we have reached the goal of the curriculum itself, or when we know that there is another, need from the teacher and the students. So when it probably happens, and then what do you think about the problems that happened because of the development itself? Sometimes it makes we need to have more trainings, and it takes time, changing again and then training again. Okay, and probably the last is, can you please share about the curriculum in school in Australia? Okay, that's all. Thank you. That's a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. I think what I'll do, I'll just answer the first question. I'll try to encourage you I'd like to encourage you not to despair if there's always change. So if curriculum development is conversation, needs dialogue and research, it is an ongoing job. So I think the first thing that I think one needs to realize as a teacher, as an educator, is that it is not something that you do and then you can tick it off and that's it for the rest of the career. It's ongoing, it's hard work and it's ongoing. So I think the first of all needs to be a realization that this is what curriculum development is about. Having said that, I wonder when you have curriculum changing very, very quickly. Whether actually the phases that I very quickly tried to describe have been respected, okay? So if you change before you have actually looked at it, implemented it, and evaluated, then you might change a little bit too quickly, okay? So I don't know how, you know, the exact history of the curriculum development here, but typically when things change very quickly, then people lose actually also interest, so that's another problem. As for your second question, Australian curriculum, I think we should have a coffee about that. We actually have a national curriculum in Australia, but you know, regardless of what kind of curriculum we are looking at, whether it's the Indonesian curriculum or the Australian curriculum, they have a lot of common in terms of levels, the 9 levels, etc. Curriculum is a framework. So whatever framework you have, and whether it's a very tight framework or a more generous framework, there's always space to develop things. And I think there's always space for someone to listen to you and for improvement if you can actually show in a well-organized, convincing way that something, for example, is not working. But it needs more than talk. It is work, it is hard work, yes. Thank you. I think we'll finish here, and we can talk more about Australian curriculum maybe over coffee. Thank you.
Thank you, Elke. Give applause to her. Okay. Probably curriculum transformation require two elements, like dialogue. We have to make a dialogue from many different stakeholders, and also research to provide something new from the previous one. As curriculum development is an ongoing process, probably a change is a must in our life. Thank you. Probably from the committee there is a souvenir to the presenter. Okay, right. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, just come forward, please. Pak Sigit probably will present the souvenir. And now Sigit to presenting me with these gifts. And for those who don't know, Sigit is actually also my student. So, so we are now in a very different relationship now that he has presented me with the scarf. So when you come back to Canberra, you know what to do. Thank you so much.